my name is Berna Ticonchuk. I'm the Horticulture Program Coordinator. And more importantly, I feel is that I'm a technician in the Conservation and Horticulture Department. I say that because we're standing in this greenhouse, which is our tool to grow plants, especially during the school year, right? It starts in the fall and ends in the spring when we don't usually grow plants outdoors in this climate. So I'm the manager of this greenhouse, and this structure was built back in the 70s, so 1977, I believe it was completed. So it's kind of an old-fashioned greenhouse in the sense that it's an aluminum frame with glass structure, and that was the standard in greenhouses back in the late 70s. So it's not super energy efficient. It could certainly be much better as far as holding heat in, and as far as the different systems that that it takes to run a greenhouse as far as this environmental control area that we have. And that really is what greenhouses are. They're structures that control the environment or give you the ability to control the environment to grow plants in. So in this greenhouse in particular, we can grow bright light loving plants that like the heat, like these succulents and cactus. We could also grow tropical plants that also like bright light, or maybe if the light demand isn't as high, then we put them in the shade of the bright light overstory plants. So that's a greenhouse in a controlled environment type of situation. At FLCC, we use this greenhouse for many different purposes. So everybody from art students to biology students have used this greenhouse. The art students, they've done installations in here before where they've made kind of recreations of what the plant structure suggests and kind of built models of them, which was such a cool installation. Also that nighttime art students have come into the greenhouse before and drawn living things, whatever they're called, I don't really remember, but it gives them models of living organisms to draw. And then biology classes have come in and done the growing of plants to show different nutrient additions. So everything from actual synthetic fertilizers to organic fertilizers. So compost or what we would call a 5-10-5 type of fertilizer. And then as far as I'm concerned, near and dear to me, because my background is horticulture, that growing of plants, we use this greenhouse for plant propagation class, where students get to sow seeds and then transplant those seeds, and then take those plants that they've grown outdoors and plant them, kind of a full cycle use of starting in the greenhouse and ending up outdoors. And then also classes such as Introduction to Horticulture, where we'll come in and we'll propagate a whole lot of different plants using 5 or 6 different methods of propagation. And we've even used this structure for nighttime horticulture classes in the winter, where we've pruned shrubs. We bring a whole bunch of shrubs in and use those as subjects for pruning and for teaching pruning. So this structure is very, very important to our program and to the college. And it's very, very important for student learning, again, between the fall and the springtime, when in this climate that we have here, this temperate climate, you can't usually grow plants, but our students get the opportunity to grow plants here. Some of the plants that the students grow are what we would call annual plants, so they're annual flowers, right? They sow them from seed. Let me back up. They do some research and see what those seeds need to germinate. Sometimes they need light to germinate, Sometimes they need total darkness to germinate. Some of the species of plants that we grow are everything from petunia flowers that will get potted into larger pots and they'll be used on the stage for commencement, to other annuals such as zinnias that stay low growing, so they're good bedding plants. And then other plants that might get 3 feet tall, such as amaranthus plants, that right now they look so small, but they will get to be about 3 feet tall and have these dramatic flowers that hang down from them. Some of the other plants that we grow that are really tough plants and do very well in full sun, hot situations are snapdragons. They're really a fun plant to grow, and they are everything from scarlet colored flowers to mixes of colors. So these plants are those that students started, and then 4 weeks later they transplanted into these 6 cells. And then the next stop for them will be outdoors, and that will be in about 5 weeks from now. Some of the interesting plants that we have in this greenhouse, in the collection of plants in this greenhouse, are more of like economic botany plants, those consumable plants. And some of them are these bay trees or bay laurel that are used for seasoning, right? Bay leaves that you would put in soup and sauces, et cetera, et cetera. So they're fun to grow, they're pretty easy to grow, and they're easy to divide from the base of the plant and make new plants. Other economic plants are aloe plants. So oftentimes people have aloe plants at home and they look like this with these little spots on them. Well, in a greenhouse where the conditions are perfect for growth, they get very big, and this plant is the same species as this plant. It's just that the conditions are perfect for them. So aloe, as you know, has a gel-like sap to it that have antibacterial and antifungal properties, and they're also very, very good for burns, for example. So those are aloe. Another plant species that we have in here is ficus, and ficus ranges everywhere from that common weeping fig that a lot of people have as house plants or office plants, to a plant such as this, which is a mission fig. So black mission fig, figs are the fruit that are produced on these fig trees to make fig Newtons, for example. So these plants are even though they're in a greenhouse, they go dormant. When the days are short, they lose their leaves, just like with our trees that are outdoors that go dormant. Well, these also go dormant, even here in the greenhouse where it's 65 degrees in the daytime. And so they just have new foliage out on them right now. You'll see all these little black balloon-like structures on them because we use this plant in one of our classes to do air layering, where we'll kind of wound the branch, and then we'll put some rooting hormone on there, hold it open, wrap it with a substance called peat moss that holds on to moisture, and we keep it dark so that we can spur on roots to grow. There's one of the old air layers here where there are some of the old roots that are on there that formed from a wound that a student made in the stem. We could have taken this branch off and planted it and had a new little fig plant. So black mission fig, and it's closely related to rubber plants, right? So these rubber plants, again, oftentimes they're used as house plants or as office plants. They get large, they do well in low light situations. But these plants if they were in their native territory, in their native jungle, they would get 100 feet tall and 100 feet wide. These are the plants that Charles Goodyear grew in plantation form to get sap or latex to build tires, right, back in the early 1900s. So the whole ficus family, or that ficus genus, I should say, is very, very diverse, and it's fun to have some of these plants in the greenhouse, not only to do experiments with like air layering, but just to tell the story of some of the plants that we as human beings use and consume. Another species of plants that we have in this greenhouse are jade plants, and we have kind of a collection of jade plants in the sense that we have the standard jade plants that just have large fat leaves. Sometimes you get this red along the margins. That's kind of the common jade plant, as it were. But then we also have what's called tricolor jade, which is a variegated jade that has red margins on the leaves. And we also have small leaf jades, such as this one that's here. Jade plants, they're so much fun to graft. We do that in plant propagation class, where we'll take a branch of the common jade and we'll put it onto the variegated jade, for example, and then vice versa. And there's such a large area, it's called the cambio layer, that has kind of sewed together on each of the plants. It's so large in these jade plants that we really have success with grafting jade plants. So it's really gratifying for students to work with these jade plants. They can continuously grow, so we're always repropagating them. And we propagated these last year, the little leaf ones and the common ones. This was probably 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, that we propagated this fluted jade. And then back 15 years ago, we propagated this common jade from a mother plant that was almost twice the size of it. So in this greenhouse, because it's relatively small, the greenhouse is, we have to keep on regenerating plants if we want to keep the same species of plants all the time. Otherwise, we have to keep on repotting them, and then we'll run out of room quickly, and we won't be able to have the diversity of species that we have today.
Hi, my name is Jessica Belmore. I'm a second-year work-study student in the horticulture department. Some of my responsibilities in the greenhouse include grooming, occasional watering, disinfecting pots. I do research for seed sowing and transplanting. Currently, what I'm working on right now is getting rid of the flowers off of this variegated flaming Katy. This just kind of helps control the pests in the greenhouse. This is something that I really enjoy doing and working on. And this is something that I would like to continue doing in the future.
So another, I think, purpose of this greenhouse is to make people realize and remember that plants are so vital to our lives, not just giving us oxygen, of course, but also feeding us. Without plants, nothing would live, right? There wouldn't be that whole food web that we have. So plants are very important. This is the FLCC greenhouse, and I hope that sometime you can come and visit us.